The dialogue was excruciating to read sometimes. I feel like the characters just made the dumbest decisions ever. Was it worth it to read the book? Debatable. Hi, welcome back to my channel. So today it is October and I will be wrapping up everything that I read in September. I did not read too much. I have my list here, but honestly, it's so short I could probably just speak purely from memory. I only finished 4 books this month, which is the least amount of books I've finished per month, I think, since last year, like June or July of last year. So it wasn't a great month reading wise, but it was a great month otherwise. I was really busy with schoolwork. I had my birthday, a friend that I hadn't seen for more than a day since we were 11 or 12 years old came to visit, and she stayed for a week in September at the end. It was very chaotic, but it was a good chaos. It was fun. And so it's just 4 books. This will be a short video. However, as I mentioned, it's October 5th as of filming this, and I've already finished 2 books and I'm about to finish a 3rd book. So what goes down must come up eventually. October is going to be a great reading month and it will make up for the sad amount of reading that I did in September. I wanted to read more. I just didn't have it in me, didn't have the time. I will be, as per usual, rating my books via the CAWPILE rating method. That is from the Book Roast. She's on YouTube and I will link her video below, along with an amazing spreadsheet. If you see me looking down in the corner over here, it's because I've got my computer with the spreadsheet open for the CAWPILE rating system. And it's just the best spreadsheet ever. I'm so obsessed with it. It's got everything. It's got all of the stats on it. You can rate things, you can track things, you can look at pie charts and graphs and everything, and it's all for free, created by her, and she does a new one basically every year. However, you can download any of the old past versions now. Again, completely free, and you can see on screen the method. Each letter stands for something specific, and within those letters you rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, and this is my personal scale. It's a little bit different from the original CAWPILE scale for the 1 through 10 ratings. And that is what I base all of my books off of. And also, as per usual, I will briefly flash a description of the book so that you can read a little bit about it, and so you're not completely lost when I'm talking about a book that you've never heard about. Pause if you want to read, because like I said, it's just a flash. It's going to be super quick and then it's gone. And also, as per usual, I'm only going to show book 1 in a series. So if I'm reading book 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, I'm still only going to show the description for book 1, because I feel like the descriptions for books later in the series absolutely gives things away. All of the time, 100% of the time, it's going to spoil things, and I don't want to spoil anything for you if you've not yet read a series or a book. So it's always just going to be regarding book 1. And so if I'm talking about a book and it's a completely different title that was flashed on the screen for the description, just know that that's book 1 in the series, and maybe I'm talking about book 5, 6, whatever. Anyways, to continue. So the very first book that I read this month was Reckless by Lauren Roberts. That is book 2 of the Powerless saga. I think it's a trilogy, 3 books. I'm not particularly sure because I don't intend to continue reading. As you can see, I did not rate it super highly. The first book I genuinely did enjoy quite a bit, actually. It was kind of a guilty pleasure read, and I think that the writing was pretty bad. The dialogue was excruciating to read sometimes. It was very cliche and very cheesy, but I still enjoyed it despite all of that. However, the second book, I feel like it had all of the things that I did not enjoy from the first book, and it didn't have the same excitement and intrigue and enjoyment for me personally. And so I didn't really end up liking the second book, and it kind of was difficult for me to get through. I really was slugging through the final 60%, I want to say, and it took me a long time to finish that. The first beginning bit, the first maybe 30%, I really enjoyed. And then from there, it kind of was, I don't know, just a very neutral kind of experience for me. And then the final 60%, give or take, was just awful, and I did not like it. As you can see by my ratings, the lowest rating I gave was Logic with just 3.5, but also writing and plot were not far behind at just 4. So, and everything else also wasn't very far behind at 5 or 6 total. There really was not any outstanding section within the CAWPILE rating for me for this book. There wasn't anything that I rated above 6, which as per my scale is just considered mediocre. It's just very average, middle of the road, not anything to write home about, not anything special. And that's kind of just how I felt about this book in general. I will link below in the description and then also up here somewhere the video where I was reading this, my vlog. And I talked a lot more in depth about my feelings and specifically what I liked about it and what I did not like about it. But I don't really want to rehash that right now. I think you can see by my ratings that I didn't particularly enjoy it overall. It felt repetitive and it felt kind of bland, kind of boring. It was very cheesy, and I feel like Kai carried the entire book on his back, and I actually really didn't like Peyton that much in this book. So kind of was an unfortunate experience overall. But again, if you want to see more in-depth thoughts about that book, you can check out the vlog. I just don't want to go through it now. I will put a screenshot here though of the notes that I took while I was reading the book, just some of my thoughts to kind of try to summarize it during my vlog process. And I did talk about those and explain those in the vlog. So again, check that out if you want to see that. But just so you can have an overview of what I liked, what I did not like, that's a pretty good overview. I ended up giving Reckless overall 2.5 stars, and because I rate everything and track everything on Goodreads, I had to decide if I wanted to go down or if I wanted to go up. And I ended up going down to just an even 2 stars for Reckless. I just couldn't bring myself to round up to 3. I just don't think that it was worth it or deserving, especially the ending. I just didn't really like it. It kind of feels like we're back at square one, and I'm just kind of getting sick of it. So anyways, book number 2 that I read this month was Funny Story by Emily Henry. And this, luckily, I did like quite a bit more. I ended up rating this 4 stars on Goodreads overall. And as you can see by my ratings, it just in general was a much better experience for me. The lowest ratings I gave for it were atmosphere and logic. I just feel like most contemporary romance books are built on a foundation of miscommunication. And I really hate it. It is my least favorite trope on the planet, and there's just something about it that really makes me so angry and just really puts me in a tizzy when I'm reading a book. I just hate it so much. And I feel like this book was really heavily built on miscommunication, and I feel like the characters just made the dumbest decisions ever sometimes based on these miscommunication issues that arose. And it made me so angry, and I just wanted to grab them and shake them so hard. I also feel like everyone was extra dramatic in this book. For example, between 2 friends in this book, the main character and her friend at the library, I'm not going to spoil anything, but something happens, there's an argument, and I do understand both of their points of view. However, they basically let the friendship fizzle out for a brief period throughout this book because of this issue. And I just feel like it was so dramatic for no reason. And if they just would have communicated better and communicated their feelings better, or even just explain themselves in the slightest, they didn't even really need to go super in depth and communicate their feelings. They did later on, which was super great. And I feel like that was really needed in this book. But at the moment and for days afterwards, there was no communication like this. And there was no explanation really. And I just feel like it just was so dramatic for no reason. And I personally hate that. And so that really drove me crazy, along with all the other little miscommunications and all the other little issues throughout this book also kind of drove me crazy. And I also feel like there was a lot of trauma that the main characters experienced, and the main female protagonist, she's absolutely got mommy issues and daddy issues. Like, she just has full family issues all around. So does the male protagonist. I just feel like both of them had a lot of trauma that they really could have and should have worked through, and you didn't really get to see that in this book, and that kind of was unfortunate. I wish it would have been resolved a little bit more at the end, or that we would have at least seen them making steps towards some progress, and we really didn't. I feel like there was just a lot crammed into this book and kind of some loose ends at the end. However, I did really enjoy it overall. I loved Miles, the male main protagonist, as a character. I just think he was so good. He was so much fun. I liked just about everything about him. And I like the forced proximity trope. and the fact that they were roommates and they bonded over their shared trauma, I think was really sweet. And I did like their interactions with each other in general. I know some people have complained and said their banter was not bantering, and I think it was. I really enjoyed it and I had a good time reading it. But like I said, it was just those other things that kind of made me not rate it a 5 or even a 4.5 and just keep it at an even 4. But I still really enjoyed it despite all that. I will say though, for a book called Funny Story, I didn't laugh as much as I thought I would. Like, it was funny, but I don't know if I like really hardcore laughed out loud even once. I don't know. I just feel like I heard that it was so funny and I was kind of expecting to, and I didn't. But it was funny. It was moderately funny. It was like an inward kind of laugh funny, and not necessarily that I actually externally made any noise or laughed or anything. But I enjoyed it regardless, as I've already mentioned. So book number 3 that I read this month was A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. That is book 3.5 in her Court of Thorns and Roses series. And I put this off for a really long time. Before I read it, I thought that it was gonna be a novella, and it's not that long. I listened to it on audiobook and I think it was maybe 8 hours or something. So to me, that is on the shorter end of what I tend to read or listen to. But as you can see, I didn't rate it super highly because it did feel like, despite me thinking it was going to be a novella and despite it being a little bit on the shorter end, it really did feel like it dragged on a lot, and it felt like a whole lot of nothing happened. I don't know if I could actually explain a plot or anything that was supposed to happen in the book, because it just felt like it was a recap of what had happened in the past 3 books and kind of a peek into their lives after the whole war is finished, which was nice because I did want to read about those characters in, I don't know, kind of like a happy ending scenario. And so I did enjoy that. However, I don't know, I guess I didn't like the characters enough to read almost 300 pages of them just having a good time. To me, it just felt really boring, and I just kept waiting for something to happen, and nothing really ever did. And I also feel like the characters that I like the most, like Amryn, for example, she was barely talked about at all. She was briefly mentioned, but we didn't get an actual scene with her that felt like it was special and that it was just for her. It was always her with somebody else, and the scene was focused on the other character. And I also really love Lucien, and he was barely in this book at all. And then when he was in this book, the scene just really frustrated me, and it made me want to smack everybody that was talking to him because I didn't enjoy the way that they were talking to him. And I don't know, it made me dislike some of the characters that I liked before, and then it made me feel nothing towards the characters that I previously liked, like Amryn and Lucien. It wasn't enough for the side characters. It was a lot for the main characters, and I just didn't really enjoy it that much. I think in general, it was just a fun and easy read overall. It's just, if you actually look at it and pick it apart, then I think it kind of completely falls apart, for me personally at least. And you can kind of see that by my ratings. Overall, they're just very average, middle of the road ratings. I believe that a 6 is the top of my mediocre rating, and then a 7 is considered okay, according to my personal rating system. 8 is really where I actually consider something good, and then a 9 and a 10 are just, really good. And you can see the only thing I rated an 8 was logic, and that was purely because I do feel like the characters at least were behaving as I would have expected them to behave, and I do feel like this is a pretty realistic look at where I would expect the characters to be and what I would expect to happen. It's not like there was anything where I thought that that's so out of character, or this would never happen, or this is weird, why is she writing about this? So it was logical in that sense. It's just, I don't know, it just was a little boring to me. I just don't think it had to be as long as it had to be, and I would have liked to peek at some of the other characters instead. It's not like I regret reading it, but also, would I ever read it again? No. Would I say that you absolutely have to read it if you're reading the series? No, definitely not. You can absolutely skip it. It's really not that important. The only important thing happens at the very, very, very end. Like, I'm talking the epilogue, the final couple of pages, and you don't really need a book to know that. I feel like most people know that this was a thing early on. I'm not going to spoil it, so I'm not going to say what it is, and I also can't say that much about it because then I feel like you'd be able to figure it out. But it's just something between Farah and Reese, and you kind of get a little sneak peek of it in the Throne of Glass series, and so I feel like most fans do know what I'm talking about, and I just feel like you don't need the book to learn this new information. And also, it's just learning the new information. It's not really even, I don't know, experiencing it or getting an actual peek at it. Like, it's just a decision that they made, and that's kind of basically it. And so, I don't know. Was it worth it to read the book? Debatable. I rated it 3 stars, just an even 3 stars on Goodreads. It was just very average for me. It was just very middle of the road. Anyways, the 4th and final book that I read was A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. That is book 3 in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. And this was by far my least favorite book in the entire series. I'm not going to talk about it too much because I feel like most things I would say would spoil it. But you can see that this one also was kind of a lot of just really middle of the road, average ratings, a 7. That's not great. It's also not bad. I did not dislike this book particularly, but I did not like it that much, and I did not enjoy it that much. I feel like the characters that I liked the least were the most present in this book, particularly Apollo. I did not like Apollo as a character from the beginning, and I really disliked him in this book for a million different reasons. I just really have not disliked a character so much in a long time, and not a I love to hate him kind of way, but just I genuinely really disliked him. He felt very flat to me. I just feel like, what was he even fighting for? What was his motivation? I don't know. I didn't feel anything from him. I didn't feel anything for him. I didn't feel connected to him in the slightest. And that kind of put a damper on the entire book because he's so present and so active in this book. And I really love Jax, and I just feel like Jax, I don't know, he just wasn't really doing it for me as much in this book. And he also wasn't as present in this book. And Evangeline, I've always kind of been just whatever about her. I don't particularly love her. I don't particularly dislike her either. And this book just, I don't know, it just like really fell flat for me, honestly. I think the ending was nice, and I did like the actual official final end, but just the way to get there and the meandering road that was taken and all the choices that were made, I don't know, it kind of drove me up a wall a little bit. So you can see that by far the highest rating is writing, and it's just because Stephanie Garber in general, I feel like she does a good job with writing. But I don't know, this book, it was by far my least favorite from the series. I rated it 4 stars. I went back and forth on if I should do 3.5 and round up to 4 or just do an even 4. But I feel like in the end, I decided to go with 4, mostly because I really liked the series as a whole. I think the second book was amazing. I absolutely loved it. And I would read the second book again for sure. But I don't think I would ever read the third book again, ever, for any reason. And I don't know if I would read the first book again. I feel like the first book was all right. I did kind of enjoy a lot of things about it. So I would say it was a little bit higher than average for me on the good end of things. The second book, like so far on the happy good end of things, I really love the second book. The scenes in the Hollow, I loved it. It was so good. And so that for sure was by far my favorite. And then there was this book, and it really just was right in the middle. It was not any way or the other, just really average, middle of the road, which I feel like kind of summarizes my readings for this month. I don't know why. It kind of really is frustrating because I thought that these books that I chose were going to be good. I had my suspicions about Reckless, but I really thought that this one was going to be a good one. And I thought I would at least enjoy in a really kind of sweet and wholesome way A Court of Frost and Starlight. And that to me, it was just really average. And this one, A Curse for True Love, again, very average. And Reckless, honestly below average. And funny story, I would say a little bit above average, but then if you take that reckless and funny story and you put them together, it averages out to be average. This was like the whole theme for September for me. So yeah, that's all that I have to say about A Curse for True Love. I don't want to spoil anything. If you've got any questions for me, or if you want to hear any more details about any thoughts or feelings I had along the way, I would be happy to discuss it in the comments below. But I think I'm just going to end my September recap here because I don't feel like I have anything more to say. I feel like it would just be rehashing the same things over and over and over again about the books just being average to me. So I'm not going to put you through that. And I will end it here, and I will just say thank you for watching my video, and I hope that you had a better reading month in September. And I would love to hear what your favorite book was in September, and also what your least favorite book is, because I love to know which books to stay away from. And I will just see you in my next video then. Bye.